This is the Life by Design with Angela Weiss podcast, episode 35, Permission to Stand Down After Survival Mode. Welcome back. I'm Angela Weiss, nurse practitioner, author, and someone who has spent years helping people navigate burnout, trauma, emotional exhaustion, grief, survival mode, and the invisible weight so many people quietly carry every single day. And today's episode is deeply personal, because today we're talking about what happens after survival mode. Not while you're trying to survive or while you're pushing through or functioning, but what happens when your body, your mind, and your nervous system finally say, enough. Today's episode is called Permission to Stand Down After Survival Mode. Before we begin, wherever you are right now, take a slow breath with me. Inhale slowly. And exhale. Again, inhale and exhale. You don't have to hold everything together perfectly while listening to this podcast. You're allowed to simply just be. I think one of the hardest things for strong people is learning how to stop, because many of us learned that early on in survival mode, well, it depended on movement, keeping working, keep helping, keep carrying, keep fixing, keep functioning, keep showing up, keep going. And sometimes survival mode works, at least temporarily. It gets you through impossible seasons, but eventually there comes a point where your body starts asking questions your mind has been avoiding. Recently, I had a difficult decision to make for my own mental health and peace. I stopped taking overnight call at hospitals where I was seeing patients who were in psychiatric crises. And honestly, even on the nights where I wasn't getting many calls, or any at all, my nervous system never fully rested. I realized I was waking up exhausted before my day had even started. And eventually I had to ask myself, is this paycheck even worth it? Is it worth what it's costing me emotionally? And the answer was no, it wasn't. It wasn't worth it anymore, because I could feel that I no longer had enough left in me to fully show up for myself the next day or for anyone else. And that was hard, because strong people are often praised for how much they can endure, how much they carry. Healthcare especially teaches us to override ourselves, which I find very interesting, that we're taking care of sick people, but we're not allowed to take care of ourselves. We're told to keep pushing and keep functioning, and to normalize exhaustion, to normalize stress, and to normalize emotional overload. But eventually I realized peace mattered more, rest mattered more, my sanity mattered more, and saying no to something that was financially helping me was actually saying yes to my own well-being. But honestly, this was not the first season of my life where I was running on fumes. About 12 years ago, my grandparents moved in with me after my grandmother had a severe fall and was badly injured. She spent the next several months in and out of rehab and recovering from hip and back injuries. And after that first rehab stay, we realized my grandfather could no longer safely live alone either. So suddenly, I was raising my children, homeschooling them. I was working full-time. I was going to school, I was in a residency program, and I was caring for my grandparents inside my home all at the same time. And I don't think people fully understand how exhausted I was. I was functioning, but I was barely functioning. I was surviving on responsibility that gave me no other options. Surviving on adrenaline, surviving on obligations, and there were so many days where I genuinely felt like I didn't have a moment to breathe for myself. And I think that's what's happening to many strong people. People see capability and assume capacity, but capability and capacity aren't the same thing. Strong people are often carrying far more than anyone realizes, and because they continue functioning, no one notices how overwhelmed they actually are in those moments. And then sometimes life brings a level of grief or trauma that completely overwhelms the nervous system. After my daughter Emma was killed in a car accident nearly 5 years ago, everything inside of me shut down. The best way I can describe this is I felt like a house where the electricity had gone out and the generator had kicked on. Only the most essential things were running. Everything else inside me shut down. I was in such severe shock that I genuinely thought I was developing dementia. I called it Emma dementia. I couldn't remember the simplest things. I would get lost driving. I would get lost in stores. I forgot where I parked my car. I forgot how to cook. I forgot so many of the basic things. I was having panic attacks so often, crying uncontrollably, feeling detached from the world around me. My hair fell out. I gained 60 pounds. And I barely recognized myself anymore. I felt like a shell of who I was. And this is something I really want people to understand about trauma and survival mode. Sometimes people look functional externally, while internally their nervous system is in complete collapse. And because I had spent so many years functioning through difficult things, I think part of me tried to keep functioning through the grief too. But eventually, the body keeps the score. The nervous system keeps score. For years, I worked in the ICU, the emergency department, and as a 911 dispatcher. And those environments teach you to move constantly, from call to call, from room to room, from emergency to emergency, from crisis to crisis. There's often no time to emotionally process what you just witnessed before the next person needs something from you. And I remember oftentimes driving home after shifts so emotionally depleted that I would sit in my driveway before going in my house to see my children, because I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing left to give them. I felt like I'd used it all up at work. And I know there are healthcare workers listening right now who understand exactly what that feels like. First responders, police officers, firefighters, 911 operators, military. They care for everyone else all day while quietly disappearing in themselves. Eventually I realized something. I did not want survival mode to become my permanent identity. I didn't want exhaustion to become my normal forever. I didn't want stress to become who I was. I didn't want overfunctioning to become the only way I knew how to live anymore. And healing, it honestly started looking much quieter than I expected. Now, I protect slow mornings. I drink my coffee outside, and just today I built a fire outside and sat there for about an hour listening to the birds, and it felt peaceful. By the way, I'm doing that now too. The fire's still going, and the birds are still singing, and I'm still outside. I write constantly. Writing has become a part of my healing, not only for myself, but also because I know other people feel these things too, and I can put words to those feelings to help them. Prayer is incredibly, incredibly important to me. My faith is the center of my life. Nature helps me reconnect with myself, and I nourish my body differently now. I say no much more easily these days. And honestly, that was something I had to learn how to do, because many strong people struggle deeply with rest and saying no. Rest can feel uncomfortable. Rest feels unfamiliar. And sometimes rest even feels unsafe, because when you've spent years surviving, stillness can feel terrifying. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have about strong people is that they assume strong people don't need anyone. But the truth is, many strong people secretly wish someone would check on them too. We wish someone would notice that we're tired. We wish someone would ask how we're really doing. And we wish they didn't always have to, or we wish we didn't always have to, be the one holding everything together. We wish someone would help us out sometimes. The truth is, many people are not strong because they wanted to be. They became strong because they had no other option. I had no other option. That realization changed me. And honestly, that is one of the reasons why I created a workbook called Permission to Stand Down. Right here I have it. Sometimes reading a book helps, but people often need something beyond insight, beyond conversation, and beyond simply hearing someone talk about healing. Writing creates a space for people to think differently and to process differently, to slow down long enough to hear themselves again. The workbook walks through burnout, survival mode, grounding exercises, emotional processing, nervous system reflection, rest and healing, reconnecting with yourself again, because healing is not just understanding what happened to you. Healing is learning how to live differently after it. And maybe that's what this episode is really about. Not becoming someone new, but finally allowing yourself to stop living like you're in a constant emergency state. Before we close today, I want to guide you through a brief grounding exercise. If you're driving, keep your eyes open and simply listen. But if you're somewhere safe and quiet, allow your shoulders to soften slightly. Relax your jaw. Take a slow, deep breath in and slowly exhale. Again, inhale slowly and exhale. Notice the chair beneath you and the floor beneath your feet. Notice that in this exact moment, you're allowed to pause. You don't have to solve everything right now, and you do not have to carry everyone else's emotions. You don't have to hold the entire world together. Breathe in slowly and exhale. Imagine setting something very heavy down, just long enough to rest, long enough to breathe, long enough to remember that you're human too. One more deep breath in and out. You are allowed to rest. You're allowed to recover, and you're allowed to stop surviving long enough to heal. The workbook, Permission to Stand Down, a guided workbook for burnout, survival mode, and learning to rest again. I love this. It's a lot. It's a big book. It's available on Amazon. I hope that you get this and use it and let it help you. Permission to Stand Down, the book for the strong ones who never learned how to rest, is also available on Amazon. I have some other books that kind of go with those. Not kind of, they do. This is my personal story about answering the call, what 911 dispatchers carry, and why it's so hard to explain. And it's not just that, it's just showing it to people what they go through. And then for those of you who are living with or walking with someone who has carried heavy things, is Standing Beside the Warrior. How to support someone who's learning to stand down. All of these books are available on Amazon. We need to do a better job of understanding that we don't have to carry the whole world. We don't have to take responsibility for everything and everyone around us. We deserve rest too. I hope that this has helped you today. I hope that through some of my stories you can tell I have struggled myself with letting some things go. But once I learned how, life's been so much better. Honestly, being in nature is one of the biggest parts. Without the hustle and bustle of the world and everyone around, my days are spent quietly at home because I work from home, seeing patients all day with my pets who drive me crazy most of the time, but not always. With flowers, with birds, with the woods, with the lake. It's healing for my soul. Thank you for being here today. If this episode has helped you, please share it with someone else, because maybe it'll help them too. And the way other people see these episodes is if you hit the like, follow, and share button. If you have questions or comments, put them down below. You can follow me on Facebook at Life by Design Press, Instagram at Angela Weiss Author, LinkedIn, Angela Weiss, and I'll put my author website in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. Take what you need, leave what you don't find helpful, and keep living your life by design. By the way, I did forget this. If you're in a crisis, call 911 or 988, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. This podcast, is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace your own mental health care, and listening does not create a provider relationship with me. Thank you. You have permission to go rest.